the time. I don't care if it's football player, basketball player, corporate world, whatever it may be, there's usually a lot of sacrifice. So, and I refuse to.
Yeah. He would enjoy it because I think he would enjoy it because it's spreading the martial arts and just the influence of our movie, The Dragon, when it's done.
There's a man you've probably seen on screen, standing side by side with Bruce Lee, but whose complete story remained hidden for decades. Jim Kelly was more than just a martial arts fighter or an actor. He represented something Hollywood didn't know how to handle in the 70s, a black man who refused to follow the script they had written for him. For a few years, he shined intensely, won titles, starred in films, and became a symbol of resistance. Then, without scandals or explanations, he simply disappeared. What happened to this star who seemed destined for immortality? The answer may reveal more about Hollywood than about Kelly himself. If you're enjoying learning more about Jim Kelly, leave a like here and let me know in the comments which of his films you like the most. That helps me keep bringing more amazing artists like him. It all began in Paris, Kentucky, on May 5, 1946. The small southern town carried a romantic name, but reality was quite different. It was a time when racial segregation still dictated the rules of daily life. Growing up black in that environment meant facing invisible barriers every single day. Kelly's father worked in a factory, and his mother provided domestic services. The family didn't have much money, but they had something no system of oppression could take away: dignity. From early on, young Jim had to learn that the world wouldn't be generous to him simply as a matter of justice. He would need to earn every inch of respect through his own effort. At school, Kelly excelled in practically every sport available. Football, basketball, track and field, and even tennis were part of his routine. His athletic performance caught attention and earned him a scholarship to the University of Louisville, a significant achievement for any young black person of that era. It seemed the path was opening up. But during a football practice, something happened that would completely change his trajectory. The coach, in front of everyone, used a racial slur against Kelly, publicly humiliating him. In that moment, Kelly realized that not even talent would be enough to overcome institutionalized prejudice. He packed his things and left campus without looking back. There were no farewell letters or formal explanations. He simply understood he didn't belong in a place where his value as a human being wasn't recognized. It was after dropping out of college that karate entered his life. In Lexington, Kelly found a small dojo where, for the first time, he felt he could be evaluated solely by what he did, not by the color of his skin. He began training in Shorin-ryu style, a traditional Okinawan modality that emphasizes speed and self-control. Under the guidance of dedicated masters, Kelly trained 8 hours a day, overcoming injuries and pain. Karate became more than a fighting technique. It transformed into his way of recovering the self-esteem that society tried to destroy. Through martial discipline, he rediscovered confidence in himself. In 1971, Kelly participated in the Long Beach International Karate Championships, the most prestigious tournament in the United States at the time. At 25 years old, he was the only black competitor among hundreds of fighters. And he won the world middleweight title. That victory represented much more than a trophy. It was a declaration that he had reached the top through his own merit. From a young man who left college because of racism, Kelly transformed into America's #1 martial arts champion. He opened his own dojo in California, where he not only taught fighting techniques, but also transmitted to his students the importance of self-pride. Among his students were actors, athletes, and celebrities who felt drawn to the aura of freedom that Kelly emanated. In 1973, Warner Brothers was producing a martial arts film with Bruce Lee as the protagonist. When a supporting actor was dismissed during filming, the team needed to find a replacement quickly. The requirement was simple. He had to be authentic. He needed to actually know how to fight and have screen presence. Someone in the martial arts circuit mentioned Jim Kelly. When he walked into the audition room, tall, broad-shouldered with his characteristic afro, he made an immediate impression. Bruce Lee approved right away. There was something about him that couldn't be taught in acting schools, the presence of someone who truly lived as a fighter. When Enter the Dragon premiered in theaters, the worldwide audience was impacted by Bruce Lee's performance. But alongside the Asian legend, Jim Kelly shone with his own light. Playing Williams, a proud and free black martial artist, Kelly wasn't just acting, he was being himself, a black man who stood firm in a white-dominated world. The character Williams became a symbol of black strength at a time when American cinema rarely allowed black men to be heroes. Kelly instantly transformed into a cultural icon. Bruce Lee had such appreciation for Kelly that he wanted to invite him to collaborate on another film, promising they would work together again. Unfortunately, Lee passed away before he could fulfill that promise. The following year, Kelly starred in Black Belt Jones, an action film full of energy and style. During the same period came Three the Hard Way, where Kelly co-starred with Fred Williamson and Jim Brown. Three black men facing a white supremacist organization. In movie theaters across America, black audiences packed the sessions. For the first time, they weren't the ones being chased on screen. They were the ones holding the guns. They were the ones winning in the end. Kelly continued starring in other films like Hot Potato, Black Samurai, and Death Dimension. Even when the scripts were simple, his image remained powerful. A black man who was strong, confident, and unbreakable. The voluminous afro, the precise spinning kick, the contained smile, everything about him became legendary. He was the face of black kung fu. At that peak, he seemed to have everything: fame, freedom, and a guaranteed place in history. But along with the glory came a heavy shadow. The media constantly called him the Black Bruce Lee, a label that sounded flattering but was steeped in prejudice. To the press, Kelly was never just himself. He was always the version, never the original. Kelly deeply respected Bruce Lee and considered him like an older brother. But being labeled as the black version made him feel erased. He calmly said in interviews that he didn't want to be the Black Bruce Lee. He wanted to be Jim Kelly. Later, he admitted that what he didn't like about Enter the Dragon was that he never had the chance to fully show his own style. It was Bruce Lee's film, and although he deeply respected him, Kelly couldn't display all his true technique. In the late 70s, Hollywood was changing. The blaxploitation era, the genre that transformed black action heroes into cultural icons, began to disappear. What was once a cry of resistance post-civil rights movement was now being condemned by white critics as cheap violence that profited from black pain. The major studios like Warner Brothers and MGM, which had previously invested avidly in the genre, all withdrew. The stars they had celebrated, including Pam Grier, Fred Williamson, Jim Brown, and Jim Kelly, were suddenly left behind in a new Hollywood. The fall of blaxploitation wasn't just about box office trends. It reflected a political shift within the film industry itself. With the rise of Reagan's conservative era, the film industry returned to white savior heroes: Sylvester Stallone in Rocky and Rambo, Arnold Schwarzenegger in Conan and the Terminator. Black actors went back to being sidekicks, comic relief, or the first to die in horror films. Kelly felt this change more deeply than anyone else. After Black Belt Jones and Three the Hard Way, he expected bigger and more meaningful roles. But the scripts that arrived were the same cliches: the tough black guy, the smart-talking fighter, but empty inside. Kelly began rejecting most offers. He refused to play the poor black cop or characters who existed only to make the white hero look better. In an interview with Ebony magazine in 1978, he said directly that if the role didn't have soul, he wouldn't take it. He didn't need the money so badly that he would turn himself into a joke. This defiant attitude got him labeled as difficult. Some directors began warning studios that Kelly had a problematic attitude. Rumors spread that he had been quietly added to Hollywood's unofficial blacklist, where actors who spoke up or refused to conform were denied work. No document ever officially confirmed this, but the truth was clear. After 1978, Jim Kelly's name disappeared from casting lists. The 80s brought a new era of action cinema with films like Die Hard, Lethal Weapon, and Top Gun, all exploding with white male leads. The black pioneers of the 70s were marginalized. Fred Williamson turned to independent cinema to survive. Pam Grier stepped away, and Jim Kelly chose silence. He didn't fall from grace or cause scandal. He simply withdrew discreetly, proudly. Amid Hollywood blockbusters, there was no more room for a black fighter who spoke the truth. Like so many icons swallowed by the system they once challenged, Jim Kelly disappeared. Without a retirement speech, without complaints, just a silent exit, carrying with him the dignity of a man who knew he no longer belonged in that place. After leaving Hollywood, Kelly didn't drown in alcohol or despair like many forgotten stars. In the 80s, while his peers were still struggling to cling to minor roles, Kelly appeared in a place no one expected: the tennis court. Tennis became his second martial art after karate. He began playing seriously in the late 70s when his film career was already in freefall. At 40 years old, Kelly was competing in the United States Senior Men's Circuit, the tournament system for veteran players of the United States Tennis Association. He even ranked among California's top 10. Commentators were astonished by his thunderous serve and his footwork still lightning fast like in his fighting days. One sports journalist joked that the ball left his racket as if it were afraid of being kicked. No one on the court knew that this tall, curly-haired man, nearly 6'2", had shared the screen with Bruce Lee. And Kelly never mentioned it. He dressed simply, wore a baseball cap, taught children at a local tennis club, and lived off lesson fees and small coaching jobs. Friends said Kelly was remarkably disciplined. He woke up early, exercised, taught tennis, ate healthily, didn't drink alcohol or smoke. He lived modestly, drove an old Porsche 911, and never bragged about anything. When asked why he chose tennis instead of clinging to Hollywood, he would just smile and say that on the court, nobody cared who you were. What mattered was whether the ball went over the net. For Kelly, tennis wasn't a hobby. It was a way of life. The sport gave him something Hollywood never did: fairness. On the court, there were no black or white players, only skill and discipline. In a rare interview in 2010, he said he had no regrets, that he had great times and now just wanted to play tennis, teach kids, and stay healthily. In the 90s, Kelly settled in San Diego and opened a small tennis club. He named it simply Kelly Tennis Club, offering lessons for teenagers and seniors. No advertising, no social media, no press photos. He almost completely disappeared from public view for nearly 30 years. When people mentioned him, younger audiences only remembered the cool black guy from Enter the Dragon, not realizing he was still alive and still training every day. Those who knew him in San Diego all said the same thing. He still walked upright, his characteristic curls intact, the same half smile, and a calm, steady gaze. Kelly was married twice. His first marriage to Marilyn Dishman in 1967 was brief, lasting just over a year before ending quietly. His second marriage to Marcia Bentley in 1980 became his true home. The two stayed together for more than 30 years. They had one daughter, Sabrina Kelly, but for decades the public barely knew she existed. No photos, no events, no public appearances together. People often wondered if Kelly was hiding his family to protect them from the media, or if he simply wanted to keep a part of his life untouched by the world. For him, silence seemed to be a form of freedom. In a rare interview, when asked why he never talked about his family, Kelly replied that it was the only part of his life he got to keep for himself. In the early 2010s, Kelly was diagnosed with cancer. The type was never publicly confirmed. Some say kidney, others prostate. He kept it completely private. Only his wife Marcia Bentley and a few close friends knew. On June 29, 2013, Jim Kelly passed away at his home in California at 67 years of age. His family confirmed the cause was cancer. Marcia Bentley, the woman who quietly stood by his side for more than 3 decades, released a brief statement saying Jim passed peacefully and lived the way he wanted, strong, quiet, and free. But even in death, rumors followed him. Some martial arts websites claimed he died from choking during exercise, while others said it was a sudden stroke at home. Only after the Los Angeles Times and the Hollywood Reporter published the official news did people learn the truth. He had died of cancer after a long, silent battle. The news of his death shocked fans around the world. Social media flooded with messages of disbelief. One fan wrote that they thought he was still out there somewhere, just not making movies anymore. For many, Jim Kelly hadn't gone away. He had simply stepped away from the screen again, training somewhere, waiting for the right role. But this time, the silence was forever. Major newspapers around the world reported his death. The Hollywood Reporter, Los Angeles Times, The Guardian, and even legendary critic Roger Ebert all published tributes. Ebert wrote that Jim Kelly was more than an actor, he was a declaration of life, a symbol of a generation of black men who refused to be boxed in. Jim Kelly was a legend forgotten in his own time, not because he lacked talent or because he failed, but because he was born too early. If he had lived in today's world, where black actors like Denzel Washington, Michael B. Jordan, and Chadwick Boseman are celebrated as global icons, he might have been a living legend. But in the 70s, America wasn't ready for a man like him. Kelly was a black man who didn't fit the mold, too intelligent to obey, too proud to compromise, and too independent to be owned by Hollywood. In an industry still ruled by white faces, he was a contradiction, a handsome, confident black man skilled in martial arts who refused to bow his head. Hollywood didn't know what to do with a man like that, so it did the easiest thing. It ignored him. If you're enjoying learning more about Jim Kelly, leave a like here and let me know in the comments which of his films you like the most. That helps me keep bringing more amazing artists like him. Kelly didn't die as a washed-up star. He left the stage like a fighter who knew his match was over. No drama, no spectacle, just a quiet goodbye to life. He was the first black man to bring the American kung fu spirit to the screen, but his legacy wasn't in his flying kicks or cool poses. It was in the way he lived, with pride, dignity, and silence in the face of prejudice. In a Hollywood addicted to noise, he chose to win through quietness, and that quietness made him immortal. Today, every time a black actor stands out on screen with confidence, every time a fighter enters the ring without needing permission to be themselves, you can still see a trace of Jim Kelly. He doesn't need a statue. He is the statue, for all those who never received one. In the end, Jim Kelly didn't need Hollywood to prove his worth. The way he departed, calm, proud, and without a single complaint, was his final teaching. The last move of a warrior who had already won in silence.